You don't have a motivation problem. You have a quitting problem. And yeah, that stings because it's true. You start things. You get excited. You tell yourself this time is different. You feel that little spark, that rush of energy, that belief that you're finally going to change your life. And then what? A few days later, maybe a week if you're lucky, you stop. You slow down. You lose focus. You tell yourself you'll get back to it tomorrow. And tomorrow turns into next week turns into, I'll start fresh next month. And before you know it, you're right back where you started. Same habits, same mindset, same fucking frustration. That's your cycle, that's your pattern. And the worst part is, you're aware of it. You know you're doing it. You feel it every time you quit. That heavy feeling in your chest, that quiet voice in your head saying, here we go again. But instead of breaking the pattern, you repeat it over and over and over again. And that's exactly why your life feels the way it does right now. Not because you're unlucky, not because you don't have potential, but because you don't finish what you start. You've trained yourself to quit. Think about that for a second. You've literally built a habit of giving up. Every time things get hard, every time it gets boring, every time you don't feel like it, you stop. And every time you stop, you reinforce that behavior. You're telling your brain, this is what we do. We start, we struggle, and then we quit. And over time, that becomes your identity. Not someone who pushes through, not someone who finishes, someone who quits. And once that becomes who you are, everything in your life reflects it. Your goals stay unfinished, your plans stay incomplete, your progress stays temporary, and your confidence, it gets destroyed. Because how can you believe in yourself when you constantly prove that you can't follow through? You can't. That's why you feel stuck. That's why you feel frustrated. That's why deep down you feel pathetic. Because you know you're capable of more, but you're not doing what it takes to get there. And that gap between what you know you could be and what you actually are, that's where the pain comes from. That's what eats at you. Not failure, not struggle, but the constant quitting, the constant breaking of your own word, the constant cycle of starting and stopping. That's what's killing you. And let's be real, you don't quit because you can't do it. You quit because it stops feeling good. That's it. In the beginning, everything feels exciting. New routine, new mindset, new energy. But that phase doesn't last. It never does. After a few days, the excitement fades. The work becomes repetitive. It becomes boring. It becomes hard. And that's the moment where everything changes. That's the moment where you either level up or you fall back. And most of the time, you fall back because you've been chasing feelings instead of building discipline. You've been relying on motivation instead of consistency. And motivation is weak. It's unreliable. It disappears the moment things get uncomfortable. That's why you keep quitting. Because you're waiting to feel like doing the work. And when that feeling isn't there, you stop. That's the trap. That's what's been controlling your life. You've been making decisions based on how you feel instead of what needs to be done. And feelings change. One day you're locked in. The next day you're distracted. One day you're focused. The next day you're tired. If your actions depend on that, you're always going to be inconsistent. And inconsistency leads to one thing: average results. That's the life you're living right now. Not because you're meant for it, but because your habits are keeping you there. You don't need more ideas. You don't need a better plan. You need to stop quitting. That's it. That's the missing piece. Because every time you quit, you reset your progress. You go back to zero. You lose momentum. You lose discipline. You lose confidence. And then you have to start all over again. That's exhausting. That's why you feel stuck. Because you're constantly restarting instead of continuing. And restarting feels productive, but it's not. It's just another way of avoiding the hard part. Because the hard part is not starting. The hard part is continuing when you don't feel like it. The hard part is showing up when it's boring, when it's repetitive, when it feels like nothing is happening. That's where most people break. That's where you've been breaking. And until you fix that, nothing changes. You can watch all the motivational videos you want. You can make all the plans you want. You can promise yourself, this time will be different, as many times as you want. But if you keep quitting, your life will stay the same. That's the reality. Harsh, but real. Because success is not built on perfect starts. It's built on messy, imperfect, consistent effort over time. And consistency doesn't come from feeling good. It comes from doing the work regardless of how you feel. That's the difference. That's the shift you need to make. You need to stop asking yourself, do I feel like it? And start asking, does this need to be done? And if the answer is yes, you do it. No negotiation, no excuses, no delays. Because every time you hesitate, every time you say, I'll do it later, you're feeding the quitting habit. You're strengthening it. And the stronger it gets, the harder it is to break. That's why you feel stuck. Because this isn't just about 1 or 2 times you quit. It's a pattern. It's a habit. It's something you've repeated so many times that it feels normal now. But just because it's normal doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean you have to accept it. You can break it. But it's not going to be easy. Because now you're not just fighting the task. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting the version of you that wants comfort. That wants to take the easy way out. That wants to quit the moment things get hard. And that version of you is strong. You've been feeding it for years. So don't expect this to feel natural. It won't. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel forced. You're going to have days where everything in you is telling you to stop. And that's exactly when you need to keep going. That's the moment that matters. Not when it's easy. Not when you're motivated. But when it's hard. When it sucks. When you'd rather do anything else. That's where you prove to yourself that you're different. That's where you break the pattern. Because every time you push through, instead of quitting, you weaken that old habit. You start building a new one, a stronger one, a better one, the habit of finishing. And once you build that, everything changes. Your confidence grows, your discipline strengthens, your results improve. Not overnight, but over time. Because now, you're not restarting every week. You're continuing. You're building momentum. And momentum is powerful. It compounds. It turns small actions into big results. But you'll never experience that if you keep quitting. That's the cost. That's what you've been missing. Not talent, not opportunity, consistency. And consistency comes from one thing: refusing to quit. No matter how you feel, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how long it takes, you keep going. That's it. That's the game. Simple, brutal, effective. And right now, you've been losing that game. But that doesn't mean you have to keep losing. You can change it, starting today, starting now. But only if you're willing to stop quitting. For real this time. Not just saying it, proving it. Every single day. Good. Because now we're stepping into the part that most people never reach. The part where the excuses stop sounding convincing and start sounding fucking pathetic. The part where you can't hide behind, "I'll try again" anymore. Because you've said that too many times and done nothing with it. And if you're being honest with yourself, that phrase has become your escape, your comfort zone, your way of feeling like you're doing something without actually doing shit. And that's exactly why you're still stuck. Because you've turned quitting into a habit and restarting into an illusion of progress. And as long as you keep repeating that cycle, Nothing in your life is going to change. Not your mindset, not your results, not your future. Because real change doesn't come from starting over again and again. It comes from refusing to stop. From pushing through the phase where everything feels boring, slow, and pointless. That's where the real transformation happens. And that's exactly the phase you keep running from every single time. Because the moment things stop feeling exciting, the moment the results don't come fast enough, the moment the effort starts to feel heavy, you look for a way out. You tell yourself you need a break. You convince yourself you'll come back stronger. But you don't. You come back weaker, more frustrated, more doubtful. Because now you've added another failure to your history. Another broken promise to yourself. Another reason not to trust your own words. And that's the real damage of quitting. It's not just the lost progress. It's the destruction of your self-respect. Because every time you quit, you're telling yourself, I can't be trusted. You're proving to yourself that your words don't mean anything. And over time, that destroys your confidence. It makes you hesitant. It makes you second-guess everything. Because deep down, you know you're not consistent. You know you don't follow through. And that realization, it kills your belief in yourself. And without belief, you don't even try at your full capacity anymore. You go into things expecting to fail, expecting to quit, expecting it not to work. And that mindset becomes your reality, not because it's true, but because you've conditioned yourself to think that way through your actions. And that's why this isn't just about working harder. It's about rebuilding your identity. Because right now, your identity is someone who quits when it gets hard. And until that changes, nothing else will. You can't outwork a weak identity. You can't build success on a foundation of inconsistency. It doesn't work. It collapses every time. And that's what's been happening to you. You build something for a few days, maybe a week, and then it falls apart. Not because the plan was bad, but because your habits weren't strong enough to support it. And habits are built through repetition, through doing the same thing over and over again until it becomes automatic. But you've been repeating the wrong behavior. You've been repeating quitting, avoiding, delaying. And now that's your default. That's your comfort zone. And breaking that is going to be uncomfortable as hell. Because now you're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. And that requires a different level of commitment. A level where you don't give yourself an option to quit. Where stopping is no longer part of the equation. Where you decide once and then follow through no matter what. And yeah, that sounds intense, because it is. But that's what it takes. Because the version of you that keeps quitting will never build the life you want. Never. It's not capable of it. Because success is built on consistency. On showing up every single day. On doing the work, even when it sucks. And that's exactly what you've been avoiding. You've been chasing the easy part. The exciting part. The beginning. But success doesn't live there. It lives in the middle, in the grind, in the repetition, in the days where nothing feels special. Those are the days that matter. Those are the days that separate you from everyone else. Because most people quit in that phase. Most people give up when it stops being fun. And if you want to be different, if you actually want to break out of this cycle, you have to stay when everyone else leaves. You have to keep going when your mind is screaming at you to stop. You have to push through the boredom, the frustration, the lack of results. Because that's the price. That's what it costs to become someone who finishes what they start. And if you're not willing to pay that price, then be honest, you're not serious. You're just interested. And interest fades the moment things get hard. But commitment doesn't. Commitment stays. Commitment shows up. Commitment does the work, regardless of how it feels. And that's what you need to build. Not more motivation, not more hype, but commitment. The kind where you don't negotiate with yourself, where you don't ask, should I do this today? You just do it, because it's who you are now. And that's how you break the quitting habit. Not by trying harder for a few days, but by removing the option to stop, by deciding that quitting is no longer part of your identity. and then proving it through your actions, daily, consistently, relentlessly. And yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel forced, because you're going against years of conditioning. But that's exactly why it works, because you're creating a new pattern, a stronger one, a better one. And every time you push through instead of quitting, you reinforce that new identity. You build trust with yourself. You prove that you can follow through. And that's how your confidence comes back. Not through words, not through thinking, but through action. Through doing what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. And once you build that, once you become someone who can rely on themselves, everything changes. Your mindset shifts, your discipline strengthens, your results improve. Because now you're not restarting every week, you're building momentum. And momentum is everything. It compounds. It turns small actions into big results over time. But you'll never experience that if you keep quitting. That's the reality. And it's harsh, but it's also simple. Stop quitting. That's it. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient. Completely. Because until you do that, you're going to stay in this cycle. Starting, stopping, regretting, repeating, over and over again. And eventually, that's going to break you. Not physically, but mentally. Because you'll get to a point where you stop believing in yourself completely. Where you stop even trying. Because you failed so many times that it feels pointless. And that's the most dangerous place you can be. Because once you lose that belief, it's hard to get it back. So don't let it get to that point. Don't keep feeding the habit that's destroying you. Break it now, while you still can. While you still have that awareness, that frustration, that desire to change. Use it. Channel it into action. Real action. Consistent action. The kind that doesn't stop after a few days. The kind that keeps going no matter what. Because that's the only way out. There is no shortcut. No easy path. No quick fix. Just discipline, consistency, and the refusal to quit. That's it. And if you can build that, if you can truly commit to finishing what you start, then everything changes. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because now you're doing what most people won't. And that's all it takes to separate yourself. To break out of being average. To finally build something real. But it all comes down to one thing. One decision. One standard. No more quitting ever. This is where everything becomes brutally clear. Where there's no more room for excuses. No more room for, I'll try again. No more room for pretending you didn't understand what's been holding you back. Because now you know exactly what it is you keep quitting. And if that doesn't change, nothing else will. Not your mindset, not your results, not your life. And that truth is heavy because it puts everything on you. It strips away every excuse you've been hiding behind and forces you to face the reality that you are the reason you're stuck. But at the same time, that's the most powerful position you can be in. Because if you're the reason, then you're also the solution. And that means your entire life can change the moment you decide to stop being the person who quits and start being the person who finishes. And I'm not talking about a temporary change, not a few days of effort, not another "this time is different" phase. I'm talking about a complete shift in identity, the kind where quitting is no longer an option, where stopping is not even something you consider, where you move forward no matter how you feel, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how long it takes. Because that's what it takes to break a pattern that's been controlling your life for years. And yeah, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you're forcing yourself, because you are. You're going against everything you've trained yourself to do. You're going against the habit of taking the easy way out, of stopping when it gets hard, of choosing comfort over growth. And your mind is going to fight you. It's going to throw every excuse it can at you. It's going to tell you, you deserve a break. You can do it tomorrow. It's not that serious. And you have to shut that shit down immediately. Because that voice is the reason you're here. That voice is the reason your life feels the way it does. And if you keep listening to it, nothing changes. You stay stuck in the same cycle, repeating the same mistakes, feeling the same frustration, living the same life, and deep down, you know you don't want that. You know you're capable of more. You know there's a different version of you that could exist. One that's disciplined, consistent, focused. Someone who actually follows through and finishes what they start. But that version of you doesn't come from thinking about it. It doesn't come from watching videos. It doesn't come from waiting for the right moment. It comes from action, repeated daily, especially when you don't feel like it. That's the difference. That's what separates people who change their lives from those who stay the same. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not some secret strategy. It's the ability to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And that's what you need to build now, not later, not tomorrow. Now, because every time you delay, every time you say, "I'll start again," you're reinforcing the quitting habit. You're making it stronger. And eventually, if you keep doing that, it's going to become permanent. It's going to become who you are. And that's a dangerous place to be. Because once quitting becomes your identity, it affects everything. Not just your goals, but your confidence, your self-respect, your belief in yourself. You stop trusting your own words. You stop believing you can follow through. And without that belief, you don't even try at your full capacity anymore. You hold back. You play it safe. You avoid challenges. Because deep down, you expect to quit anyway. And that's how people stay stuck for years. Not because they can't change, but because they've convinced themselves they won't. And I'm telling you right now, you don't have to be that person. You don't have to stay in that cycle. You can break it, but only if you're willing to do what most people won't. Only if you're willing to sit in discomfort, to push through boredom, to keep going when it feels pointless, because that's where the change happens. Not in the beginning, not when it's exciting, but in the middle, in the grind, in the repetition, in the days where nothing feels special. Those are the days that define you. Those are the days where you either build discipline or reinforce weakness. And every single day, you're making that choice, whether you realize it or not. You're either becoming someone who finishes or someone who quits. There is no in-between. And right now, you've been leaning toward quitting. But that can change instantly, not over time. Not gradually, instantly, with one decision. The decision to stop quitting completely. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient, completely. And then backing that decision with action, daily, consistently, no matter what. Because that's how you build a new identity. That's how you become someone different. Not through words, but through repetition. Through proving to yourself, over and over again, that you can follow through. That you can finish. That you can keep going, even when it's hard. And once you build that, once you become that person, everything changes. Your confidence comes back. Your discipline becomes stronger. Your results start to show. Because now, you're not restarting every week. You're building momentum. And momentum is powerful. It compounds. It turns small actions into big results over time. But you have to stay in the game long enough to experience it, and that's what you haven't been doing. You've been leaving too early, quitting too soon, stopping before the results had a chance to show. And then, you tell yourself it doesn't work. But the truth is, you didn't stick with it long enough to find out. And that's what needs to change. You need to stay. You need to push through that phase where it feels like nothing is happening. Because that's where everything is happening. That's where you're building the habits, the discipline, the mindset that will eventually create the results you want. But you won't see it immediately. And that's why most people quit. Because they want instant results. They want proof right away. And when they don't get it, they stop. But if you can go against that, if you can keep going without immediate results, if you can trust the process and stay consistent, then you're already ahead of most people. Because most people won't do that. Most people will quit, just like they always have. But you don't have to be like them. You can be different. You can be the one who finishes, the one who follows through, the one who doesn't stop no matter what. And that's what it takes to build a life you're proud of. Not perfection, not talent, not luck, but consistency, discipline, and the refusal to quit. And it all comes down to this moment, right now. Because you've heard it all, you've felt it all, you know exactly what you need to do. There's nothing left to figure out. The only thing left is action. Real action. Consistent action. The kind that doesn't stop after a few days. The kind that becomes your new standard. Your new identity. And the question is, are you finally going to do it? Or are you going to walk away from this and repeat the same cycle again? Because if you do, nothing changes. But if you don't, if you actually commit, if you actually stop quitting for real this time, then this is the moment your life changes. Not slowly, not eventually, but starting right now. With one decision. Finish what you start.